Welcome to today's review on Operation Wolf Returns first mission for the PSVR2. It's also available on the Meta Quest 2 and Steam, but I didn't get access till earlier yesterday, but I would assume the majority of my thoughts in terms of gameplay will be identical. As a fan of the original arcade release back in 1987, which used a metal Uzi to give players very intense vibrations, which back then was pretty unique by the way, I've always looked back fondly on Operation Wolf as one of the first light gun games I've ever played. So the news of a reimagining of the game coming to PSVR2 was pretty exciting, and as the name suggests, first missions, I'm thinking this is going to be a gameplay series. It's also published by the world famous Taito, so expectations are pretty high. So first up, let's talk about the graphics and the presentation, since the original was just a 3D side scroller. On PSVR2 we have what looks like a semi-detailed cel-shaded approach, and for anyone who's played the PSVR2 version of Zombieland will know what to expect. It looks pretty clean and vibrant and a little cartoony. There's at least 8 visual enemy variants, and they range from normal sized grunt types to big guys holding miniguns and rocket launchers. The weapons look good, but I think more could have been done for some detail. The levels look good as well, with enough changes of scenery to keep it visually interesting and touching back on the original Operation Wolf. And that's kind of important because this is still a on the rails side scroller, with the addition of parts of the game where you move forward, or for parts of the game you're in a helicopter or even a boat. As you play throughout these levels there are some interactions like explosive barrels, wooden towers that house snipers that you need to shoot down, and some wooden boxes, but overall there's quite a lack of destruction. I definitely feel more could have been done to keep the player engaged, for example trees that break when there's an explosion nearby, and there's trucks and motorcycles simply left around and you can't shoot them. I expected these to blow up, and this is where some of the power-ups or rewards would have been, but instead the developers have chosen for you to shoot animals, chickens, rats and pigs for you to gain power-ups. There's a rocket launcher, a grenade launcher, ammo obviously for your guns, and body armor, which is on a timer and basically makes your whole screen yellow, and personally I think that's a really weird decision. With regards to the presentation on PSVR2, I can't be sure if this is using reprojection because there isn't much need for fast movement in the headset like a traditional first-person shooter, unless you choose to dodge the bullets, which are bright red and they can be shot, meaning you don't really need to actually dodge them at all. Plus the entire game is on rails, and while it does have some 360 elements, I never found myself frantically spinning around, but as a guess I think it is 60Hz reprojected to 120. But I don't feel comfort will be an issue in this title, since you don't have to move and I played the entire thing seated. Now onto the gameplay. The story is told through a flat screen using 3D comic style animations, which doesn't really add much, but also kind of fits in with the arcadey feel of the game. You'll find 6 chapters broken down into 3 stages, and they all end with a unique boss fight. My complete playthrough time is around 3 hours. Plus there's an extra 30 minutes for a 360 wave shooter challenge that's part of the game, but I'll share my thoughts on that in a minute. There is also multiple paths for you to choose as you play the game, which in my timing will add an extra 10 minutes overall. The weapons at your disposal are a pistol with infinite ammo, a shotgun, an Uzi and assault rifle, which all feel pretty good to shoot, but the pistol angle did feel a little off, and there's currently no way to adjust it. Now one thing this game does really well on the PSVR2 is make use of the adaptive triggers and the haptics. Using the assault rifle feels fantastically cool and does remind you of the arcade original, and it's quite surprising how much kick the PSVR2 Sense controller triggers give you. This alone made me smile a few times. Adaptive triggers are also put to good use, meaning fast trigger pulls can get tiresome using the pistol. When it comes to tracking, and luckily I don't need to talk about this very often in my reviews, there was some issues with occlusion, more so than most PSVR2 games, but it's not really something you need to worry about. As you go through the levels you'll be shooting planes, helicopters, tanks and personnel trucks, which are all pretty satisfying to blow up. The enemy health balancing is something I have an issue with. Huge planes take hardly any bullets, but non-armoured fat people with rocket launchers take quite a few bullets unless you're going to shoot them in the head. But hey, it's a game, but it still feels strange to prioritise one man over 2 helicopters for example. When it comes to the in-game music, it's a pretty standard affair and isn't memorable, and they do use some pretty cool voice samples when you save civilians who have been trapped or caught in the crossfire, which kind of reminded me of the arcade game Metal Slug. But this also points to something missing I would have loved, and that's when you get a new weapon or a power-up, or simply change weapon, you're greeted with a vocal cue. Personally I feel this would have added massively to the arcade experience.
Heavy machine gun! Heavy machine gun! Shot! Thank you! Rocket launcher!
To go back to the 360 level I mentioned earlier, this can be found at the main menu in the form of the original Operation Wolf arcade cabinet, which I got overly excited for and played straight away before I even touched the campaign. But when it loaded up, I was greeted with a wave shooter level, which got boring by say wave 32, due to the lack of variety, but it expects you to stay in there for 100 waves. I completed it in my first attempt, and I only really did that for this review, and I immediately was rewarded with an S rank, meaning there's no actual reason to go back and play it, but to be honest, I would probably never go and play it again anyway. Speaking of replayability, the fact that there is no online leaderboards is a massively missed opportunity for some replayability. I played the game on hard and achieved mostly S and A ranks and found the game very easy and at times unfortunately lacking in excitement. The boss fights do a good job to break it all up, and they all need some sort of technique to beat over just shooting them with a health bar, but mostly there's not much of a challenge. Now onto my summary. I think Operation Wolf Return does an okay job of capturing the fun and action of the arcade original. I think newcomers to VR might find this pretty fun for a few runs, especially due to the controller haptics, but for experienced VR users this is pretty much a one and done forget game, leading to a total of 4 hours for $30. There is a hard mode which I tested as I spoke about earlier to see if it added some replayability or challenge, but I actually started scoring even higher than on medium, so the only reason to play again is for you to achieve an S rank, which I think you'll do pretty easily. Ultimately, I'm left feeling more could have been done, especially for the asking price, which if I was part of the mock reviewing process for this game, I would have put around $14.99. I've already added that I would like to have had sound clips. They could have, for example, added some screen filters to give you pixelated graphics or arcade scan lines for nostalgia purposes. And the choice not to include online leaderboards in a game like this is a very bad idea, as that is the only thing that I could imagine that would keep players engaged for a score to beat. I feel this is aimed more at hardcore fans like me with old school memories over new players, and while I had some fun playing it, I doubt I'll ever play it again as I've mentioned already. If you have $30 to spend and are looking for an arcade feeling shooter that will keep you coming back, I would definitely recommend Zombieland VR Headshot Fever, and I'll leave a link to my video below. Add me as a friend and I'll sit back while you struggle to beat my times, and you'll get way more replayability than this could ever offer you, and it has better graphics. Thank you ever so much for watching, and let me know your comments down below. If you pick up this game, please feel free to leave your review about the game in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video.